The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
All right, everyone. Welcome to the 28th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Hosts for today are Greg from Rivet, Dave from Din.social.
Hello.
From Global Crypto Press, Sean, the entrepreneur, and I'm Joe, architect, founder of Dragonchain. Quick update, last week's show. Every host last week will get 266 lots. Every topic contributor will get 83 lots. The ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, future governance codes, etc., etc. There's really good things coming with governance. The theme this week is any blockchain-related question. No, sorry, the wrong. Am I on the wrong one? I don't think so. It is innovation versus. We had a mistake there. Regulation versus innovation. We need better review of it. So, anyway, refresh. What's the first question? This will be a good one. I mean, I'm worried about getting enough content in because there's so much going on about this. So, okay. So we had some. By the way, anybody who hasn't, go and watch the video that Greg posted at the very top. It was the most. It was the highest ranking one, but it's not a question. What was the guy's name? What's the channel on YouTube?
That's Best Evidence Podcast.
Yes, and I've only watched 2 of the videos so far, but really good.
This guy knows the way that fiscal or monetary policy works, rather. And if you want to learn how the Federal Reserve System actually makes banks happen, and how commercial banking is different from central banking, and how the whole system plays with money, this guy will teach it to you in he literally uses graphs brilliantly and sometimes marbles, and his stories are all relatable. So brilliant teacher.
Really good. Yeah, really good content. So anybody who hasn't already that's in the crypto world should watch that because it gives a lot of insight. Okay, but first topic, pros and cons of regulation by litigation. So which is pretty much the angle that at least the SEC has taken with crypto. There might be other regulatory bodies that do that too, but that seems to be what they have decided to do instead of providing any clear and transparent regulatory policy, I guess, that somebody could follow. They've decided to let people do whatever they want, and then they're going to come in and investigate and sue them or do other things. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's something that I've talked a little bit about before, and Sean and I've briefly hit on it, but I am one of those people who is simultaneously juiced to innovate in this new industry and terrified that if I do so, I might go to jail just because something that isn't wrong might be deemed wrong later. So it's stifling a little bit to people who are nervous like me.
I think more than less, regulation stifles innovation. Just you have to admit that. And this, I knew when I looked at this topic, it's going to open so many other cans of worms because to really talk about this, you have to talk about parts of the broken system, and then you get into politics and you get into the the sociology of how the country is nowadays and all that. But something really interesting that happened to me this week. I watched the Texas the first debate for the primaries, and there's 3 people running. One is Chad Prather, who's comedian and a influencer. He's a funny guy. The other one is Adam West, who's Batman. He's a general for colonel or general from Fort Hood. But he was a senator or something. And then this other guy, which if you ever watch King of the Hill, I think they modeled a character after this guy because he talks in a specific way. Like I think it was the coach and some other people. But when I heard this voice, I was like, oh my God, it's the guy from King of the Hill. He was a senator in Texas for, the state. He didn't take any money as far as pay, but he went after corruption and he uncovered all this corruption in Austin. People went to prison. So he said that he thinks that we should have a new branch of law enforcement. And I was like, come on. And he said only to investigate government corruption. And then I was like, why don't we have that?
It's called the Justice Department. It's supposed to be doing that.
Who watches the Watchmen kind of thing?
Yeah, who watches with every other country. And I thought about it. We don't like to admit that we're turning into a shithole country. And people don't even want to say that word. But if it wasn't, people wouldn't be running away from those countries. And for us to have to admit that we need a special branch of law enforcement just to deal with government corruption, it lumps us into those banana republic and terrible countries where they need that. But we do.
Well, I mean, I think we've always needed it. I think Eisenhower had it right? Like, I mean, the military-industrial complex was a huge freaking risk, and we got what we paid for.
But now, the intelligence agencies have become just their own thing. They're not trying to police the government and regulators. Let's get back on tap. To fix it, they want to get dirt so that they can control them. It's all a big mess up. It's screwed up. So I think that we do need to clean house, because with regulation, with authority, with power comes corruption. It's the oldest, thing in the book. But so we really do need to clean it up. And I think that would be a smart thing to have that did it, because even police departments, they have internal affairs. We need an internal affairs now. It's just
I think
true.
It's worse than people like to admit or have been led to believe, and that's part of.
Well,
go ahead.
I think it's always been like that, right? I think we're just seeing it more now, and that's what technology's done for us. It hasn't made the world worse. Probably the opposite a little bit, because it's made it so damn visible.
I think a lot of
how fucking terrible it really has been all along.
I think it's always been there. Like any place that you're going to centralize power, you're going to have corruption. That's the way it works. Doesn't matter where you are, but it is radically worse if you have no honor and no civics present. If a society doesn't value honor and doesn't value justice,
didn't they stop teaching that class back in the 70s?
Yeah. Have we valued honor always? I mean, if you went back to look at any given really, far back enough in the miss of time situation where somebody could have been pulling dirty tricks with the media, do you think FDR's fireside chats were decried as we need to regulate this new radio thing because he's gaming the other side with this, and this is just
even if we didn't, Greg, even if we didn't actually. Right? We gave the facade that we did, up until Clinton said it's all about the economy, stupid. Until that moment, that we cared about it. It was a thing,
Sean and Greg both said something that I think is really interesting. That is like the visibility of it. Like in the past, there was this ability to pull the wool over people's eyes without having real-time access to other people's opinions. And now, a lot of people are, and I don't know if you'll forgive the term they, if all of they realize, or if they've realized too late, that the old tricks don't work with modern technology anymore.
You'd say that. You say that, but that's entirely why Facebook, Twitter, Google exist, because they lost they had 4 networks and a newspaper in every city. Easy to put your thumb on, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden the internet breaks out and you're like, holy crap, anybody in the world could post anything they want and people might listen. So now we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Google, we have everything is centralized again.
Right, but like the printing press itself didn't cause serfdom to collapse. It showed the serfs why they should destroy serfdom. Right,
the printing press didn't have. I was talking about this. I guess it was yesterday on a different show about basically. I've done a lot of advertising on Facebook as a band promoter and stuff like that, events and stuff. Literally, like a nation state doesn't have to do a lot of research on like how to conduct psyops and how to target people. They can just go to Facebook, and Facebook will say, okay, what kind of material would you like to present to women between these age
That's the
groups?
fundamental difference right there.
What kind of material would you like to present to men in this age group, in this location, geographically, that kind of thing.
Right.
Like Joe was saying,
we're going to connect you to our public affairs.
People will always be attracted to where the power is, like that is a magnet for a certain type of person, and those type of people are very often corrupt. Or if they can gain more power when they're in that seat of power, they can rise to the next level through some method of corruption. They will usually take that offer. But what is different, and that has changed, literally, I feel like in my lifetime, I feel like I've watched this change, is the people responsible for exposing the corruption have become corrupt more than ever before and rapidly. I mean, I feel like it's over like the last 10 years or so. Yeah. It's like they're twice as corrupt as they were the year before.
So 100%.
I don't think there's a single source now I trust. I don't think there's any news outlet that I would go to and I say, what is published here is the truth. They write it whether they like it or not. They just like to tell the truth. That doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, how the watchers have really just used their power to get dirt so that they can control those other, like the oversight committee, so that they can control people on that, so that now they have carte blanche to do what they want. Because they're supposed to be the check to this thing, but now the people that are supposed to check them, they can control. So now everyone's kind of doing what they want because of corruption.
This is a great dovetail back into the original question, right? Because what I wanted to say was my initial reaction to regulation by litigation is ick, right? Because what we think of when we hear that is the SEC should just sue and case by case decide if it violates Howey. No, I think that crypto needs to be regulated by civil law and people suing people. And we need to figure out where the problem areas are that are amenable to any kind of government solution, because if we can't have that basis in first principles, then we will have an unprincipled regulatory regime. And I don't think that we can suffer that.
When an industry is new, it's kind of understandable how you could have regulation through litigation at the beginning. There's an excuse for the first few years, but when something's been around for a decade, I don't think there's an excuse anymore. You should have figured out what the guidelines are. What I find so weird, though, about crypto regulation is everything people have a problem with has been illegal before the internet was even invented. It's this simple. It's illegal to lie to investors to get their money. Right. That covers like every problem we have, and it's always been that way. We don't need to pass.
It's illegal to buy
anything,
people,
dude.
No matter what you use to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right. But we're going to run the risk of like
we really don't.
We're going to run the risk of like the protocol being completely stunted by functional fixedness fallacies, right?
Look at what happened with 3D printers, or not the entire, like it's not broken yet, but a lot of 3D printers won't print certain files. And a lot of drones won't fly across certain borders, just fake lines drawn, because they have baked in protections against.
It happens in the recording industry with DAT tapes, because the recording industry was so scared of digital audio being copying things that were already out there, that they totally stunted the growth of that entire technology. You could get it, but it was overpriced, and you could pretty much use it for a studio. But the same thing happened, and it was because, and I think we'll probably get to that. But what is the root cause of the current situation? And I happen to think it's lobbyists and it's other powers, because Congress has only started, which is good, to quite pull in is like, holy crap, this, we're talking about potentially trillions of dollars that will go to some other country if we don't do something. They're starting to take notice, but most of them don't get it yet. And when they do get it, it's entirely featured to them as a banking related issue. It is entirely about, crypto as a currency
or a criminal.
Well, I think we run into a kind of a potential pitfall if we try to destroy lobbying as a concept rather than try to beat them at their own game with decentralized lobbying fundraising.
Yeah, well, it's beyond that though. I don't mind lobbying.
They won't get rid of it as soon as
Here's the issue though: lobbying to an elected representative is a known thing. People already know that there are negatives, but there are positives to it. There is some free speech to that people can do the same. But the issue is what word do I even use? Let's just say the bureaucracy. That I've the funny thing is all of these things move so slowly that people don't understand even the history of, I want term limits. Well, if you have term limits, then all of a sudden the deep state will control everything because the bureaucrats don't have term limits, right? The issue is the civil service system, because during, I believe, Jackson, they didn't want cronies in. So they put in the civil service system so that the politicians couldn't just sweep all of the people who do the actual work away. And that has led to this, what a lot of people call the deep state that is sitting there and
I feel like bureaucracy is more the symptom of the problem than it is the problem itself, though, right? Like what we get is more and more bureaucracy.
Yeah, well, the problem is big government. Centralized big government is
which kind of, you're all talking the same thing. I mean, the problem, the chicken and the egg. It's like, is it bureaucracy? But then bureaucracy feeds itself and grows itself. Yeah. So it becomes a problem even if it wasn't in the beginning. And
we need a Jeffersonian rethink, man.
Like Dave and Ross both said, it all comes back to that, especially with the question. Regulation through litigation stifles innovation, period. Like Dave said just in the beginning, I want to innovate, but I'm scared to, because there's no even a basic framework where you can say, hey, I'm operating within this, you have some kind of foundation to stand on, whereas you don't want to step out, into the sand because it could be quicksand.
Wow. And then there's this, oh my God, Sean, you just hit on something really, really incredible with this too, because they don't really want, the regulators don't really want to punish you so much as they want to bolt on their people, right? You can't open a neobank unless we come after you and in response you add our risk management provider and get a backing bank that has a charter, and we're going to bolt in all this bullshit so that you can't actually outcompete us anymore.
It's what was that recently that happened where there was a system that's what happened to it. Some sort of settlement layer had to get added to make it acceptable, even though the blockchain system is its own settlement layer. Like that's the whole purpose. They were like, put a settlement layer in, and there
was a case in one of the exchanges, and I won't remember it. One of the exchanges actually was hacked, and this was probably in the 2016, 2017, around there. It was hacked because the government forced them to do something with their keys that they should have never done. But it was something that they said, no, you have to do this. And their lawyer said, oh, just do that because that's the safe thing. And it led to a disaster. But anyway, okay, next question.
Hold on, I want to say something about the chat. Stan made a comment about what I said about the U.S. turning into a shithole country. It's not a shithole country, but we do have our head in the sand about a lot of things. And that's why we don't look at it, because we don't want to think that we need to have a division of law enforcement just for government corruption like those other countries. That brings us down to their level. We're the United States.
It's a good thing to consider because we don't want
pure.
to.
We're better than that. Yeah. But my point is, we're not better than that anymore.
It's like
our government.
We have a crisis of vision, actually, in leadership.
Yeah,
I think.
And you have to think about it. It's like, if you were a corrupt individual, where you would want to come in and get a piece of this pile, right? This is trillions of dollars. Anyway. Okay.
And the crisis of vision is that all our leaders have a vision that's exclusively composed of crises.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next up, y'all weird. If stablecoins can be classified as a security due to the yield you can get on them, how do you think this could affect the entire space? Would it kill DeFi? Would we see structures like Curve and Ohm crumble under regulation, or would they innovate new ways to circumvent?
That's basically a question on like the implications of what happened with Coinbase's Lend, right? Where the SEC said that since people are making money with it, it's a security. That's kind of what they said. I think they didn't really give them. That was like.
I don't think they actually answered him. I think they just said it wased. I can't remember the details, but they gave them a vague. We would not want you.
They
to
said
do
that due to their they reviewed it and they decided it was a security, and you're right, because that was that big long Twitter thread, right? Here's what we said, here's what they didn't say. But that's
others are already doing it, and they've not said anything about it. So if it's a risk to the world, to investors, why have they not?
Well, I think plain and simple
that
is a case of the banks not being able to compete with what they were offering with Lend, which was an insured what's the word, the P word, principal. And it was like a 4% yield or a 4.65% yield, like the return on it.
Unheard of, yeah.
And so banks are like, shit, that's what we offer, but we only give a 0.5%. They can't do that. I think that's what happened. That stands. What is the implications for the rest of the industry? If that's
we need a reboot of this Howey test nonsense. Like, it is a regulatory capture utility now. Like, that is pretty much what it does. It is there to unnecessarily paternalistically protect everybody in crypto who doesn't already have
reboot
the minimum wealth
asset, classic, man.
Right? We got to get rid of that that exact edifice. It could even potentially look a lot the same, but we need to flush it and start over with something that makes sense with stable coins. Because if we don't, then we're just going to get we're just going to get bank charters bolted onto freaking stablecoin backing, and you're going to have your stablecoin project partner with fucking one of the big mega banks, right? You're going to get Wells Fargo as the banking partner and charter provider for every stablecoin. Is
like to be even allowed to do it, kind of thing.
Right. It's just going to go back to the bullshit, because they have this. I don't know if you guys ever looked at a bank charter, but they have this stupid character requirement that's designed to basically say, if you've never been in banking and we don't trust you, then we're not going to issue you a charter.
The club. Yeah. And I guess in the end, you kind of have to go to all the assumptions. There's a question later in here, whether we get to it or not, that says, well, regulation is good and fine and so on, but XYZ. But I'm like, that assumption is never really backed. I'm like, why is the regulation there? If the regulation was there to avoid the issues that you had with Madoff, to avoid the issues that you had with BitConnect, if you to avoid those things effectively, if it really protected people, that I could see that being a good case for that regulation. But in the case where it lets people get screwed, it occasionally will screw people, because it'll take action against a project that is doing things that are good and objectively providing value.
Right. Or it just sort of cynically uses the old risk to limit the reach of the new technology.
Yeah,
that's the thing that sucks.
And so you have to think, though, the real reason isn't what the stated reason is. It is not to protect the consumer. It is literally to protect the banks. It's literally to protect the powers that be, VCs in some cases, against Ethereum, and that much like the surveillance state, that it didn't protect us against the Boston bomber. It didn't protect us against all of these other cases. Where it's like you're literally monitoring my every conversation, and you can't even capture the guys that you tell us that you're doing that for, right?
Right.
So
I defy you to find a Bank Secrecy Act invocation that did anything to actually prevent criminals from enjoying the fruits of their crimes. Like, it was supposed to stop drug dealers from being able to enjoy their drug money that they make, and it did. Like, there's literally no proof that it does it.
Now the OTC desk just
we're just like KYC, AML. Of course, it's great, because we hired a lot of additional risk officers last month. and they say it's
So-
great with their reports.
So yeah, it is a problem with the whole system. But anyway, okay. And DeFi. So I think that's less about, by the way, about stablecoins than DeFi. DeFi, I don't know. I mean, it's a very interesting thing, and I don't know what their approach should. I mean, frankly, their approach should have been to lay out. Look, if you follow
If it's
these
self-custody.
guidelines, yeah.
Well,
and-
with this question, I think specifically, he's asking if the reason that you can classify a stablecoin as a security is due to the yield you can get on them, if that's actually the reason, then how does that not apply to everything? Just because it's a stablecoin doesn't mean it doesn't work exactly the same.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Every other thing.
You could literally make money off anything.
Yeah.
You can't say just because you make money off it. It's
DeFi can't be killed though. They could constrain its volume, but they couldn't kill it.
Well,
Basically,
we're
the
already
reason we
getting-
don't have unkillable dApps up everywhere is because there hasn't been enough pressure to force them to be engineered.
Right.
If all
how
of
soon
us,
that
there's
all of
lying.
us here could sell our
It's not a
sperm.
security, just straight up.
So
it's
that
not a
would it
security.
doesn't make our
It's-
sperm.
It
a
doesn't
security.
increase value on its own. The asset does not increase value, so it's not a security. Period. So if they pass this law, it's just a scam for to tax us more. That's it.
That's a
Yeah,
good point, Ross, because
exactly.
a stablecoin by nature is supposed to not
Exactly.
increase in
Yes.
yeah,
Be more simple.
that's the
Really.
reason it exists. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
we
that's
got to
kind of
make
goes
sure
with
that
it.
these
It's more about
software
DeFi than it is
algorithms
about the stablecoin.
aren't corrupt.
It's literally a
right?
product where they guarantee us it will not increase in value.
Yeah,
And they're
it's a
saying
stablecoin is not
security.
gonna. You're not gonna
Right.
make money with a stablecoin. It's due through DeFi. So the
Right.
question is more. It's
Or through
more
lending.
about DeFi than it is about stablecoins.
Yeah.
Those,
And
those
that
smart,
thing was
those
about
smart
lending.
contracts, man. Those smart contracts. You got to watch those guys. They're squirrely. They'll change on you without telling you, right? We got to make sure we have plenty of oversight on them to make sure that they're not going to do things that aren't appropriate with their backing value.
If there was only a way to see the code to tell what they do.
Right? I don't know. Like, it sounds to me like someone should write a law that says they have to do that. Otherwise, I don't know how blockchain is going to ever do anything good for the world.
And by the way, other than providing good guidelines and saying, look, you're not going to have a problem if you don't commit fraud. And by the way, referring to what Ross mentioned earlier, that refer to existing law that is well established. Everybody agrees that fraud is bad, right? Everybody agrees various of these things are bad, and they could very well lay out guidelines pointing to existing law that's very clean, very simple to follow, and they could otherwise provide education. Say, your keys, your coin, do your own research. Make sure you don't throw money around that you shouldn't. Right? I mean, it seems that would be more effective. But
well, I mean, and then people don't see litigation party to party as a solution in part because of the way that the law industry is also centralized and sort of gatekept, right? If you had law students who can graduate law school, not have to run the gauntlet of, first we're going to make you take this ridiculous test over everything you were supposed to have learned in law school. And then we're going to scale that score to how many people we'd like to add to our competitive market this year. Congratulations, you got in because we needed only 50 more to keep our billable hour prices stable.
Yeah.
Like,
I will tell you that whole world is firsthand is a racket. The regulatory legal that is a racket, and they know it, and that's how it operates, and that's why it works. And
it was designed that way.
They make
the
millions.
YMCA was running two-year programs in law before they built the Harvard model and created the bar admission situation we've got going now. And they got freaked out because they didn't so much care for the culture that the people who were graduating from the Y were coming from, joining the bar. They didn't want them at the barrister's ball. They didn't like seeing people that didn't look super waspy.
I was a little bit optimistic actually. Relatively recently, I was seeing some talk about providing a grace period to get people off the ground before you start regulating them. But then just a week or two ago, I watched an SEC chair say that maybe all of these existing companies should not be allowed to exist because they have broken rules that didn't exist yet. And maybe we should just get rid of them so that, other people can fill those roles as the exchange or as the this or that. And he's up there suggesting literally like, maybe we should just let the incumbents come in. We'll get rid of the new guys and just let the incumbents come in, and a bank can serve that role better than a
surprise. And that's my biggest problem with it, is that we, by and large, are not bankers, right? There's some out there, and I'll tell you, any project that has people on its staff that are former Goldman Sachs don't apply to what I'm about to say here. But a lot of us are just freaking engineers, right? And we want to build things that, by and large, don't even deal with money. They, it's like most of the stuff we build is.
We're all mostly annoyed with the requirements that you made us add to the stupid applications. Bank people and law people and all you other software people with your obnoxious edge cases and your bullshit and your, it needs a management override button for every fucking thing that matters so we can cheat and make it look fair. Like, that shit is there in every single one of those systems. There's an I'm powerful enough to hit the edit button. And we wanted to get rid of that fucking thing. That's what this is all about.
There's a weird combination of people who get that, who are not dumb, who understand, and people who refuse to see cryptocurrency and blockchain as anything other than money. Like, it can never be anything other than money. It's always going to just be money. And people that are dumb who don't get it. There's a big mix of people in there. But I had a point about the middle one, and I forgot it. I do that a lot. But
sorry.
I lost it.
Sorry.
Wow.
Moving on. It's good. All right, we go to the next one. We go to Imladizi. Regulations. This is it. Regulations are good and essential in user/investor security field. I disagree, or at least I refuse to acknowledge that unless
we can
some argument.
Hypothetically, they could be, right?
They could be. I guarantee some regulations definitely could be. But the point is, what's the purpose of the regulation? So anyway, despite this, since crypto ecosystems and innovation projects are taking place in ordinary banking business, I'm wondering. Okay. Anyway, I don't know. Topic. How I don't understand the beginning of it, but how banks are involved in government regulations against crypto innovations and fee-free politics that crypto promotes and takes place in the financial market. So I think he's saying the banks see that this is in direct competition to what they've been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
Is there pressure and sabotage? What do you guys think?
I think commercial banks want in, man. I think they're excited about it. I think they're especially worried about the Federal Reserve cutting them out of the game with a central bank digital currency. So I think that they are probably more likely to be some of the most enthusiastic institutional adopters because they see cryptocurrencies as their only weapon against central bank digital currencies, just cutting them entirely out of the game.
I think Digital Foods makes a really good point in the chat that regulation requires transparency. And especially in banking and all that, they're not used to it. But I think with DeFi and with crypto in general, not just blockchain, but in crypto and DeFi, it's a real shaking up of things. It's a new way to do things, and that's why they can pay 8 times more than a bank can. And for the bank and the legacy, regulatory institutions to come in and say, no, let's do it this way, the way that's really messed up. Let's try to conform this and to change it into a different thing than you're doing because we want you to do it this way. And that's the whole point of what DeFi is. It's completely different. It is changing and fixing things that are broken. And for them to come in and say, no, we want you to do it the broken way makes no sense whatsoever. And that's when you fall back on the bureaucracy.
This is the patch.
Shadow banks want to murder it too. That's the other thing. Like, the non-bank banking institutions are the ones who really stand to lose if DeFi and crypto takes off, right? Nobody's going to want to play the how many reverse repos can I buy to stuff these completely useless cash assets back into this thing, right? Like,
and if you want to step out of crypto for a minute, how many of you guys have had an account with one of the newer banks that's all online? There's not a brick and mortar, Why are there so many banks, first of all? And how many of you have had the situation where that bank was then purchased by an old world bank?
Simple.
And all simple.
Just
all of the crap just totally flips. And it's happened to me twice in the past 10 years where, man, this is great. They have these features. They have these things where you can move stuff fast. You can have an account with your wife. You can transfer money like that. It's all on a mobile app. And then this other bank buys it and they totally cut out all of the stuff.
Somehow that big bank's app is crap compared to the little startups version.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Axos Bank and fucking N26. Do not buy that thing. Do not buy that. I tried to buy it so Mr. Fogg, a Canadian company, I placed plenty of orders there because they don't give a fuck about shipping to me, even if it's technically not something they're supposed to do through UPS. If UPS doesn't check it, it still arrives in the mail. No law is broken. It just violates UPS's vow to follow that policy because the post office decided they were going to stop shipping vapes when the law said they had to.
You know what's funny is I had the reverse issue. Oh, I thought you were done.
I bought a fucking order with N26 and they deleted my card instantly, locked the app, and my account to this day is still sitting with. I just got my new or updated iPhones and gotten the refund from selling my old one. Just landed in my account the day that they closed it, locked it, and put it under review. It sits in review to this day. There's $1,000 that's just hanging out in this fucking N26 account. That I can't get.
A lot of people, I think, had their first experience with the concept of your money being turned off whenever they started getting into crypto. 5 or 6 years ago or something, and all the banks started just turning off your cards and stopping services with you. And it was a lot. I don't know if it's like a Streisand effect or something, but that kind of amped people up too. Like, what the fuck do you mean I can't use my money?
Well, it's kind of like that Star Wars thing where, the tighter you grip, the more systems will fall through your hands. If they did that, they're like, hey, you want to use money? We're going to stop you. We have all the power. And then bam, DeFi comes along. It's like, I really don't need you. Thank you.
It's the same thing. The same thing happened in 2017 with all the crypto because they tried to push down the ones they thought they could control. Thousands others popped up like a hydra.
Mm-hmm. To the listener's question real quick, I'd just like to say, I think that's a battle that already happened and they lost. And if you look back, I would just say look back at some of the quotes from Jamie Dimon of Chase over the last 5 years or so. And basically it was people in crypto listing valid reason after valid reason why the banking industry should not be trusted, why it's time to move on from them. And they would respond by saying Bitcoin is stupid. I mean, that was really the depth of their arguments. We could say, oh yeah, you crashed our entire economy a few years ago, and they say Bitcoin is stupid. They lost. So now, they're sucking up to us right now. Officially, the American Bankers Association, which every major bank belongs to, last year put out a memo that went to all of them that said, find cryptocurrency-based companies that you could partner with, because these banks already have, and it's turned out really well for them. So that battle's happened, and we won.
I hope that's the case.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it.
I agree with you. I think that's absolutely right.
The what was it in 20? Gosh, would have been 2014, 2015 when the two senators on the banking committee came out in support of banning Bitcoin, literally before they understood what's possible, right? And any guess as to why the two senators on the banking committee came out?
They were told to.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
I'm sorry, they were asked to.
Yeah, that's where it is. I mean, it's.
Well, you can look at Brad Sherman. I think it's 90% of his backing is from banks, even foreign banks. Mm-hmm. All Swiss banks, the Chinese banks.
The legacy porn industry also was one of his primary campaign contributors, based on just
a credit card processing company. A credit card processing company that paid a major fine for facilitating illegal gambling sites is his number one backer.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. See, theoretically, I mean, I think to Greg's point weeks ago that a DAO is probably the solution to that, because you can, the people could gather and at least compete in that nasty world of lobbying, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway.
Oh yeah. If Constitution DAO had instead bought a lobbyist to change a law that nobody was trying to argue should still exist, right? Like if they were like, Constitution DAO is now deschedule marijuana DAO.
Yeah.
Like, and they were
We should
paying,
do a whole
paying
episode on
all that
DAOs
money
one day,
into a
actually.
lobbyists
That would be great.
campaign. That would just, it would run over all the drug war funders. Like, they wouldn't even see it coming.
Yep, it's going to happen. So, okay, next, bit by the coin. Are the regulators picking winners or losers? Yes. Or perhaps being lobbied? Yes. Going after projects that represent a direct threat to traditional systems like banks? Yes. For example, Ripple and not Ethereum. There's a lot of stuff going on Ripple that I can't even keep up with. I try to, and I'm surprised the rest of the crypto world isn't. Were we not so tribalist, I think maybe it would be a good thing, because I think what they're doing is positive. Sometimes some of the stuff that their investigators are putting out, in my opinion, is overly tribal. That they're calling it out as, oh, this was all about Ripple. I'm like, no, this is about anyone trying to do that in the U.S. That frankly, they should be gathering momentum instead of trying to be spearhead it. They have the money to do it. But I mean, they're making a lot of the arguments, I will tell you, that I brought up way back to our team that should be made, but we had nowhere near the financial resources to actually pursue research to figure out what is the case of XYZ. And they're finding a lot of it that is scary as hell. I mean, there's one of the regulators, and I don't want to get into it because I don't want someone coming after me, but that made $15 million while at the SEC, apparently. And maybe Ross knows more about that. That blew my mind. I'm like, wait,
I don't know about that. I mean, I know a lot about the Ripple case, and I got to say, just ahead of time, I don't think Ripple is a security. I don't think any cryptocurrency is a security, because the security laws were written before the internet existed, so they weren't talking about this stuff. Period. Okay, but with that said, I'm not 100% on board with Ripple's case that they should be classified with Bitcoin and Ethereum, because there are some fundamental differences with Ripple that do not apply to any other cryptocurrency. The main one being that they kept 60% of the supply to themselves. They are released 1 billion tokens per month that they are free to sell. Okay, so imagine a project trying to do that now. Any coin launching today saying we are keeping 60% of the supply. It would not fly. I mean, so first off, Ripple existing is like
it would be instantly branded as a scam coin.
Yeah.
It's totally dependent on the massive amount of noobs joining this world at the same time, and them marketing really well, and people buying into this thing that they never would buy in today. And listen, I own some XRP because I think they're going to win, and I think it's going to shoot up. So I'm not hating. I'm just being totally honest. Okay. So now put this in mind, though. No, listen, Joe.
Cool.
Their tokens are worth about $1 each. They get 1 billion per month that they are allowed to sell. Their fine is $1.3 billion. Okay, that is a total of 2% of their supply.
Game.
Well, see,
So
this
people,
goes.
People think that this is like the doomsday scenario for Ripple. If they lose, they're done.
It's their invitation
if they
to the
lose, they're
fucking
down
party.
2%.
It's their
Like,
invitation
this
to the
thing has
fucking
been
party.
overhyped. People are so exactly, dude. People are so confused. I almost want to just throw out conspiracy theory, and it is just that. But it's almost like Ripple wanted their token value to go down for a while for some reason, because they are playing into this whole thing like, we got to win or what'll happen. I guarantee you, right before the decision will be made on that trial, they're going to come out and say what I just said. Hey, even if we lose, we're fine. There's only like 2% of our tokens.
Right. Well, and then the day after they burn twice that many to cause the value to spike. They've lost 6% of the supply.
That's all they need to do. Yeah.
That's
but
one of the things.
with transparency, if something's totally transparent, can you still call it a
Are they doing
scam?
buybacks right now? That's the question. If they're buying back while it's dipped because of this, then we know what's happening.
So yeah, they're definitely in that caliber of, like, there's a lot of people that stay in business because they can pay the fees and the fines, and they can just keep breaking the law.
Oh, right.
Because they can afford it.
Those laws are
part of the business model. Is you have
that's part of the business model. Banks do that. Facebook had the largest fine in the history of fines, and it was this because they committed an atrocity crime when it came to privacy, but they were fined 1 month of their income.
Right.
It's not, I mean, literally, it's like committing multiple felonies.
And my opinion,
you guys
guys
to do political favors and show up on the fucking hill whenever they get beckoned.
Pay to play.
I'm going to tell you guys, I think it's all inside baseball. It's like if you're a trader, it makes sense to analyze it at that level, because I agree. And I don't hold any XRP. I sold all mine way back. I bought it knowing that I hated the project. I say hated is maybe strong, but knowing that it's not a project that I care about philosophically because that's not my world. But I bought it because I knew it would go up because, well, it's a banking coin. Obviously, it's going to go up. But in the end, I think it is interesting because they are exposing a level of corruption that I was even surprised at. That some of the things that came out recently about what they've found were like, holy crap! If I would have known that, I would have been. Some of the things that I've seen, the fact that, and maybe it's too risky for me to even talk about this, but that the current chair was actually lobbying the former chair for a project, and it's still not exposed. So, and yet he's now the chair. You would think in the process of him becoming the chair that they would have said, wait a minute, have you ever lobbied the SEC for any projects? Will you be able to be objective, or at least even considered to be objective by the
would
world?
think that's part of the vetting process.
You would think so. And you would think it should be by honor, he should have said that. Look, you have to know that I did it.
Looks like when they actually want to kill you.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Even if because no one would have known to ask him this back then, but he should have, knowing he was up for that position, had. It's crazy that he wouldn't have had to say, look, I have lobbied in the past for this project under these circumstances, whatever, right? It's very dangerous, and it's very crazy, and that's the stuff that matters because that's what affects the entire industry. Right. Whether or not they'll trade, whether they win or lose, I don't know. I frankly don't care. But what matters is what they're getting out of it. That frankly, Coinbase should have already done. Coinbase has the freaking money to do it. But where does that money come from? The same people, by the way, a lot of the bigger projects that are coming out have those same VCs and or banks that are putting money in. So they're not going to try to change the world. Right.
But what would happen if we just thought experiment? What would happen if we just stripped all of the regulation away and said we are not going to consider bringing it back until we see a significant, like more than drowning or 3 years of I don't know, like it has to be cancer level issue with society where people are getting hurt legitimately and we can measure it before we do something about it. We're just going to let it run.
The model is the internet. They did that with the internet. My question is, why did they do it with the internet and not with this industry? And it's because of the source of money, that the internet did not compete with the banks. The internet, at the time, it was seen as, it's competing with telecommunications. Who cares? And the telecommunications were largely engineering cultures, right? And so they were like, yes, we want this to expand. It's more, it's innovation.
Walk Elon Musk out of PayPal though because he wanted to go again and try to compete with the banks. It was like,
I remember quotes like from Thiel that they were all afraid they were going to get arrested up until they sold PayPal for however many billion, right? That they were all worried about that the whole time, and because they were directly competing with banks. But
that's what pisses me off the most. Just my day to day, like. I know what I'm doing right now is completely right and justified and legal and morally like amazing to try to do. And at the same time, in the back of my mind, I know that there are people that with money and power who do not want certain things to come around because it completely disrupts their lock on that niche of the market, kind of thing. You don't want to end up an Aaron Swartz, right? Like you don't want to end up and I don't, and I'm I'm the kind of guy that would end up like Aaron Swartz, so I got to be careful about that. I think it takes people to make that decision to want to be able to you got to risk a little bit of you got to put yourself out there about the things that you believe in. And
you're not ready to get your wax tattoo yet, though.
Yeah, and so I've seen things like Uber where they weren't allowed to operate in certain markets in certain cities because it violated the local laws and stuff like that. And Uber decided to just pay the fines and keep doing it. It's like, all right, well, we're just going to keep doing it until eventually, just like some gambling sites for sports betting and things like that. They just kept doing it even though it was illegal.
Right.
And paid the
fines. That shines a light on
Uber.
Something that people are starting to wake up about, how there's two different laws, two different worlds of law. There's law for rich people, and then there's laws for regular people. The laws for rich people, if it's a fine or if it's a monetary thing, it's not a law.
That's just how
It's
much
the
it costs to
fee.
do that thing.
The fee, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the perfect thing.
User fees, right?
I heard someone say that this girl said she was out on a picnic in the park, and she was eating. They're having this picnic. She said, "Oh, I really wish we could go picnic over there, but you're not allowed. It's a $50 fine to go on the grass and go over there." He goes, "Oh no, it's not illegal. It's just costs $50. There's a $50 fee."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mentality.
Right.
That's the mentality they have.
Intermittently applied.
And you had said earlier, Dave, that it was it's kind of built into the business model, and that's the biggest problem that there is. If a bank and it has, this is how they operate. Bank of America, they can say, hey, we can do this illegal thing with the cartel, and we're going to make $1 billion,
Right.
and then we'll
How's
get
that
fined
different?
$150 million.
Like, isn't that just what regulations are? Like, isn't it just a protection racket to do something that's kind of like,
Well, that's the thing. I think that
legislate
what needs
against
to change,
directly like they ought to.
what needs to change is not so much the laws, but the punishment. If Facebook, first off, whenever there's a fine involved, everyone that has a Facebook account should have got some money. They're the ones that got, that were harmed, and nobody got any money from that. The government keeps all that money. Also, there needs to be jail time. If Mark Zuckerberg and the officers of Facebook went to jail for 6 months or 30 days, things would be a lot different.
But I'm not. I don't know though, because I think the board members need to be directly exposed. Frankly, like I don't think that the executive staff on any of those. I think those guys make convenient punching bags, but the real players are the people who are sitting on the board seats, telling them what to do at their monthly meetings, and saying this is your range of thing. Like Dorsey made posts about Bitcoin and decentralization constantly. Dude lived and breathed it. Never really said anything to make you think that he wasn't a free speech guy. Like it's either an act and he also runs Twitter like a cynical dick, or it's not an act and his board is putting him on this leash and making him dance like a monkey if he wants to keep his job. I think the monkey on a leash is a lot more likely.
It's at least how it's being portrayed, or at least not intentionally.
I want to know who these board people are.
That's kind of how the image is.
I want them to stop using the officers as punching bags. I want them to have.
But I think people are starting to see this duality, this how we really are commoners or serfs, and it's not so much blood royalty, but it's family and it's money. You look at, if I was to go to a woman and put my hand up her shirt and play with her titty, I would get arrested. But Cuomo did it. Number one, they never called it assault. It's harassment. That's not harassment. But there was press conferences, and the sheriff's like, hey, an arrest is not off the table. We're looking at it. He even said, I did that, but I thought it was okay. There's no reason anyone else wouldn't be arrested. And they're still talking about it. And then it was now reduced to a inappropriate touching misdemeanor if they're going to do anything about it.
Yeah, and that was all a distraction because of the nursing homes.
How many
right?
continuances?
So even that was.
But the fact that it's went through this, it's months later, and that there was a press conference about maybe there'll be an arrest. It's on the table. Why is that a thing? Why is it?
It's objectively true in this country that if two people commit the exact same crime and they have drastically different levels of wealth, that they're going to get two completely different punishments based entirely on how much they can afford to.
And they know that if they're going to let a guy off, all they have to do is wait
until
people fucking forget about it, which takes about 3 months.
Yeah. And it's based purely on that money too. That's one of my issues with like the Black Lives Matter thing is like, you know what? It's just rich people. That's what you don't understand is like O.J. Simpson got away with killing 2 white people for the exact same reason. You know, that you think it's unfair when poor people get screwed for every little thing they do.
I completely agree that like black people have been disenfranchised over the years, and they're on average less able to get up in life. But
you want to get out of a crime, hire a lawyer because otherwise you're getting public
I've seen it, dude. I remember my son had to go to court for something. We were in court, and I almost stood up and was like, "What the hell just happened?" I was so shocked. This guy came up. He went up to the judge. He had done something where he didn't check in. It was a mistake. Blah blah blah. And the judge is like, "All right, get your shit together." Blah blah blah. Then literally like a couple cases later, This black guy came up. Oh, I started this job. Same thing. And he's like, well, you're going back into custody. You're going to serve the rest of your 6 months.
Ugh.
And I was like, it was the
Money
same
difference.
thing. That was the same thing.
Crazy.
I was talking to my kids about, it was the same thing. Did you see that? That was the same thing. What just happened? So there is that. But if you look at, it's not just money. It's been 3 years, and Jussie is just going to court now. Rittenhouse is done after 3 months.
Dude, I know. And the crazy thing about it is, I don't think stirring up any of the the division does anything but make it worse. I think it exacerbates it. Like if we could see what you saw there more readily, that this is the same thing.
It is.
Then
it's all divide and conquer. So, right.
It's who you know. I mean, Smollett literally had Michelle Obama call the prosecutor. I mean, and no one cares about that. That's not.
I was going to ask you if that's who you meant when you said Jesse was Smollett, because I was for some reason under the impression that had gone through some. I don't know, but that's just now getting around to being
this week it just started. This week is
they needed another distraction, so
they even had the dry run on camera the day before.
Oh,
I don't think it was a practice run.
I want to ask you guys something.
It's
It's kind of off topic, but this is something that's bothering me. If there's something that everyone sees, and it would be the biggest news story ever when I was a kid, and it's just like no big deal. During Rittenhouse, did you see the glitch in the Matrix?
Maybe not.
You didn't see the. You got to look it up.
Well, I saw that they it cut out a lot.
No.
I feel like all I see are glitches in the Matrix these days.
This is what they're filming it in court, right? A guy walks in behind him, and his foot disappears.
Yeah,
just a regular camera. Nothing. His foot disappears. There's only one way that could happen. Is that if it's a background,
some kind
of
effects.
No one talked about it. Everyone's it's a glitch in the Matrix. Ha ha ha.
Well, I've never even heard of it, but I'll look it up.
What the hell, man?
Well,
why isn't that explained?
If it's a real background in real life,
it could also be the streaming platform itself.
Yeah, exactly.
They make it
You
so
go watch the video
pixels
before
change.
you guys start talking about it. Go watch the video.
It could be in the client. I'm saying it could be client side processing.
It is very, very weird.
Sean, were you lobbied to promote Matrix 4 just now? Is that what's happening?
Hey, you're getting ahead of me.
Because that was actually an issue in the Rittenhouse trial, the whole algorithmic sampling of the video. That last evidentiary issue where they
yes,
they tried to admit the finger pinch, and some guy got real clever, or the defense got real clever, was like, no, that's enhancement, that's not the same thing you put in evidence.
Well, that wasn't even the worst part of it. That was
a clever
bizarre
argument, though.
Well, but the thing that was so bizarre is that was actually the video processing on supposedly on his face, because the quality was not good enough. So we need to enhance this to see where this gun was pointed. In reality, they had the 4K video of the same, and they hadn't given it to the defense, and they hadn't. That is the thing that's criminal.
Sean,
the funny thing is,
YouTube has blocked the search.
He didn't have to say that to get.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Excluded. He just he just had to say the pinch to zoom is a different framing of it.
Well, there you go.
Hey, can you link
I
us?
haven't had a chance to dispute it.
YouTube is suppressing the video.
That's odd.
Now I think you're onto something.
I was looking it up too, just because it sounded crazy to me, and I was like, I love crazy shit. I want to see that. And then it's just like, nope, this doesn't exist.
Okay, all right. So we're running late. So that's the last question. Thanks everybody for joining. Are we good? Are we doing another question or no? No. Yes. No. I think
we're 58.
We're 58 though, right? We're probably. I don't know if anybody has meetings after this.
We should just do this episode again next week and to make it 29 and keep going on these questions. These are really good.
29 3/4.
We could continue on corruption and how blockchain can fix it, maybe something like that. But either way, okay. So let's go through everybody. What's going on in the coming week? Where can people follow you? So on, Dave.
You can follow me on Twitter at Distant. My name's on the screen there, and that's where I'm going to post all my articles that I'm writing and videos that I'm doing on Den Social, as well as some that are a little bit shorter than my 90-minute talks about how to use the platform. So some little 30 or 90-second nuggets of info. If you are confused about any of the things how they work on Den, I do a show every Wednesday morning, and I put it in the Den layer, and you can throw questions on that just like here. and I'll answer them and all that. So go do that.
Right on. Ross, what's going on?
I am in the process and about to publish a report on the latest crypto scam that took about $700 million from investors. And you guys probably saw it advertised. If you've been in crypto for like the last 2 years, somehow this scam bought ads on like CoinMarketCap and like, a bunch of top sites. Amphiix was the name of this latest Ponzi scheme. And we have an investigation into some interesting things we're finding out on where those tokens are ending up. And somebody maybe get caught pretty soon. Also on globalcryptopress.com, for the first time ever, the U.S. is the #1 nation for Bitcoin mining power. Something that we've never held, and something China has held since 2014.
Bravo.
And unlike the last time China lost the #1 spot, they gained it back about a week later from the Netherlands. China is just going down, 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 down. They are not coming back this time. So U.S., I guess for the foreseeable future, is the world capital of Bitcoin mining.
So in the great hash race, hopefully we still get to the moon. Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Right. Sean, what's going on this week?
Just wondering if Texas secedes, would that affect that?
Yeah, well, that's the #1 state.
That's actually a platform that two of the people running are pushing for secession, which is really weird.
So much sense too. Texas has so much wasted like flare gas and industry, energy and stuff.
Oklahoma and Kansas to go too. I'll bet you we could talk Oklahoma and Kansas into joining into.
I think we have the 11th largest economy in the world by country. It's bigger than Brazil, which is supposed to be the South American powerhouse.
The United Counties of Mega Texas, I think, needs to be the nation.
Mega Texas.
It's going to be Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and maybe Nebraska if they want to come too.
I'd move.
Yeah,
I'd move there.
What do I have going on? Just check me out on Stoshan on YouTube and Twitters and Instagrams and all that kind of stuff. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, by the way. Mine was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Hope everyone's having a good holiday season, whatever holidays you holidate.
Thank you.
That's it, man. I'm trying to kind of take things a little slower now for the rest of the year to enjoy, what's happened in crypto the past year. So just check me out, and I'll see y'all next week.
The run can't be over yet, right, Sean? Anyway,
no, we got the Christmas pump. Everyone never talks about the Christmas pump. Santa brings a Christmas pump every single year,
and every single Black Friday there's a crypto dump. It just seems like every single time you see the jokes. Oh, it's Black Friday deals on all these tokens.
Also every third or second major options call. Like if it happens on the 15th or the 18th, that's a pretty good one to sell before.
Right. Craig, what's going on in Ruby?
So I might now officially, instead of doing the thing that I was about to say, be starting what I'm going to call Mega Texas DAO Pack, which is going to fund state level lobbying in Kansas and Oklahoma and Nebraska to build the United Mega Counties of Texas. Or
I would be part of that.
To name it. We can name it afterwards. That could be the first, like the Constitution adoption.
The first decision, decentralized decision.
Yeah. There actually is something that BitBoy is talking about doing in creating a political PAC.
State level lobbying would be easy to overrun with the kind of money that a DAO can raise. We could actually potentially do something that insane. So, half joking, but in all seriousness, I forgot what I was going to say. So yeah, that'll be good enough.
Right on.
I can sympathize with that.
So for me, Dragonchain, just follow all the things. Yeah, it's the end of the year, but there are a lot of things going on, and we're hoping that some of what we're working on will be coming out at the end of the year. I know with DIN that the governance is coming into place. Hopefully very soon. We're in the middle of testing, and that'll affect definitely the roundtable show and the potential to change the format or change. Maybe if you don't want to see me on here anymore, you'd be welcome to vote me off the island. It'd be awesome. Oh. And various other things like that, right? So, and by the way, there will be direct relation to some of the things that Dragonchain is doing related to that governance. So there'll be some cool things coming. I don't know.
I've already got uses for it lined up for January too, man. I got a date confirmed yesterday, like on a local level. You know, we're doing those local events and stuff. The governance thing, well, I told you, we're building a DAO on top of the DAO. DAO.
It's gonna be amazing. So, so Greg, you remembered?
I thought of something new actually.
Super.
If you guys have
ultra
not
mega
tried out, no. Well, we can talk
Turbo.
about it on there, but you guys can call in the privacy focused podcasting app where you can actually invite callers to talk on your stream. I was thinking of maybe throwing one of those or a link to an ad hoc show that we could make up into this particular layer, and we can just try it out and see if anybody wants to just have a more collaborative discussion. I tested it out over the weekend and had a lot of fun with it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, we could do something like that. That's cool.
I was going to make a hilarious joke, but I didn't hear the scam coin that Ross was talking about. So when you asked me what I was up to, I was like, "Oh, working hard on that project."
That would be bad though. Okay. All right. So thanks a bunch, everybody. Make sure you go in there, share this episode. The more you share, the more lot will be given to all of the contributors ask questions and all of the hosts. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share it. I think that's it. Next week, we think it's crypto versus metaverse. We'll at least start there. But we'll see what everybody thinks. So anyway,
That was at least one of the questions this week, and I still think we should do a whole episode on DAOs too.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Coming.
And
Coming
then
one day.
like a follow
One
up
day.
on who's doing those for real and who's doing limited hangouts.
Yes.
Shout out to Dave Dow.
Yes. Right on. All right. Thanks a bunch, everybody. See you next
All right,
week.
thank you.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.